our rights.
Thank you for being here.
Boop.
I want to kick today off by giving an update on what has happened over the last 100 days, what we've accomplished, and where we're going from here. But I am just so grateful for you all being here and spending your Saturday morning with us. We're going to follow that conversation with a quick panel, and I'm proud to be joined by Congressman Mike Thompson, who's a fellow gun owner and gun sense advocate who's been leading the charge on gun violence prevention laws in Washington, as well as Scott Fay from Citizens United, who I'm proud to work alongside with to get big money out of politics and make sure that our representatives are only beholden to the people they represent and not corporations. And then finally, after the panel, we've got time to answer your questions. So let's get into it. Early on, I was elected by my peers to be the freshman representative to leadership, meaning I've had the opportunity to be at the decision-making table and advocating for this community at the highest level possible. I knew that the way I was going to be most effective for all of you in this room was not simply by taking the right votes, but by deciding what is most important and shaping the conversation based on our values and our principles. In addition to my position on leadership, I've been assigned 3 committees that work together to create the strongest possible path forward for our community. I serve as the vice chair of the powerful House Oversight Committee.
We're looking for the emails.
Which has a broad scope covering everything from the rising costs of prescription drugs to government ethics to climate change. I'm also so fortunate.
It's a hoax.
I'm also so fortunate to be on both the House Armed
Government
Services
ethics.
Committee and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, both of which are absolutely integral to the safety, security, and economic well-being of this area, and central to the conversation that we're having here today. I've also been home for the last 2 weeks, meeting with community stakeholders and constituents, touring local facilities and businesses, and working with my staff to make sure that we're providing the best possible services from our district offices. And on that note, I am so proud to announce that thanks to the work of our team, on Monday, we will have district offices open and running in all 3 valleys of the 25th district. Here in Santa Clarita, you can find us on Valencia and Magic Mountain, just a couple blocks away, right across from the sheriff's station as of Monday morning. And while we're on the subject of the sheriff, I wanted to thank the Santa Clarita Sheriff's Department for providing such incredible security today and making sure that we're all safe. And also for hosting a prescription drug take-back day today, which is, as you know, so important. Today's event is the last one before I head back to Washington for the week, and I'm so glad for us to have the opportunity to touch base before Congress reconvenes. Throughout the country, my colleagues have been hosting town halls like this, and the perspectives and insights of our communities are going to inform the work that we're doing as soon as we get back to serve those communities. And I cannot stress how much this matters right now. You know why this matters. I'll be heading back to sit at the leadership table and sharing what I've learned from all of you. And I can promise you that that will influence some of the most critical decisions that are made in Congress in the coming weeks and months. So thank you for being part of that. My priorities now remain the same priorities that I've always had. Pragmatic approach. Can we not interrupt, please? Thank you. My priorities remain the same priorities I've always had. Pragmatic approaches to problems that we're all struggling with. I ran on the issues that impact my friends, my family, my neighbors, and the issues that impacted me. In my time in DC, I've been proud to co-sponsor a large number of critical bipartisan and sweeping bills and sign on to over 200 letters to provide solutions for the everyday problems that people are facing in this community. Those bills include the landmark legislation that we'll talk about today, like H.R. 1, the For the People Act, and H.R. 8, the Bipartisan Background Checks Act. But it also includes my bipartisan whistleblower bill, which I introduced with my Republican colleague, Mark Meadows, on the Oversight Committee, to deliver on my promise of holding our government accountable and reducing waste, fraud, and abuse. Many of the letters I've signed on to are part of the appropriations process.
She didn't mention H.R. 5.
My colleagues and I advocate for our communities and stakeholders through budgeting, which is, as you know, so critical. And because ultimately, the way that we budget, the dollars that are allocated determine the work that we can do.
Budget money for the fence. Wall.
We really need you
Build
to
it.
not interrupt, please. Thank you. Or I'm going to have to ask for you to leave.
Secure the border.
In my previous career, I managed a complex and large budget. In Washington, it's a similar responsibility, although on a bigger scale. We consider our budgets to be a statement of our values. Your budget shows more than anything else what you care about. In my office, our top-ranked appropriations letters fought to bring funding right back here to support local jobs, programs, and priorities, like NASA and aeronautics research, as well as the cleanup of the Santa Susana Field Lab. Another top priority was addressing the college affordability crisis through increased funding for Pell Grants, which are the cornerstone of our nation's financial aid, and provided support for more than 7.1 million students last academic year. This is one way my office is working to provide a pathway to college students who might have thought that their dream of obtaining a higher education was impossible. When I went to Washington, I promised that healthcare would be a key focus for me and my team, and that has held true since day one. I've been able to sponsor sweeping new healthcare legislation like HR 1121 that would lower California's health insurance premiums, crack down on junk insurance plans, and strengthen protections for people with pre-existing conditions. I'm also confident that legislation like HR 1425, the State Healthcare Premium Reduction Act, would lower health insurance premiums and reduce out-of-pocket costs for working Americans by providing the states help with paying for healthcare expenses for people with
Can we buy it
pre-existing
across state
conditions.
lines?
But healthcare is a complex
Pretty
issue, and we have to address it through multiple lenses. That includes the lens of drug pricing, which I've done by co-sponsoring the CREATES Act of 2019, which promotes competition in the market for drugs and biological products by facilitating the timely entry of lower-cost generic and biosimilar versions of those drugs and biological products. I'm also looking at the issue of healthcare from the perspective of our workforce, with the Strengthen Our Nursing Workforce bill to extend advanced education nursing grants to support clinical nurse specialist programs. The more nurses we have working, the better. And I'm glad that my mom is here today as a representative of the nursing workforce. I was actually able to author my own legislation as well, the bipartisan Medicare Part B Fairness Act, based on the constituent feedback that I got while I was home. Right now, Medicare offers an initial enrollment period 3 months before and after your 65th birthday. If you miss that window, though, you will be subject to a late enrollment fee for every year of the delay for the rest of your life. Now that Social Security benefits aren't typically received until people are 67 years old, a growing number of people are missing this window. The Medicare Part B Fairness Act will put a cap on the length of penalties for seniors who miss the enrollment period, creating exemptions from penalties for those who are delayed because they were enrolled in a COBRA, VA, or employer plan, and address the enrollment pitfalls that many seniors fall into through no fault of their own. My team at home has been equally busy. In just 100 days, we attended dozens of community events and visited local businesses, military bases, and key sites in each part of the district. We've also secured over $80,000 in VA and Social Security benefits for our community, with more set to hit the bank account soon. I've actually just been told an incredibly touching story about a high school student.